Not all IQ test subtests have shown equal generational gains. Abstract pattern matching and similarity subtests have shown dramatic improvement across generations, while vocabulary and general knowledge subtests have shown far smaller gains. This uneven pattern across specific cognitive subtests offers crucial clues about exactly what has actually improved across generations, and reveals that the Flynn effect is more selective and more theoretically revealing than a simple across-the-board rise in intelligence. Detailed analysis of Flynn effect data across specific IQ test subtests reveals that gains have been dramatically uneven. Abstract, culture-reduced reasoning tests, most notably Raven's progressive matrices, which requires identifying patterns and relationships among abstract visual shapes without relying on acquired factual knowledge, show by far the largest documented generational gains, in some analyses exceeding 20 points per generation, considerably larger than the roughly 3-point per decade average gain typically cited for composite IQ scores overall. In contrast, IQ subtests more directly dependent on specific acquired factual knowledge and formally taught information, including vocabulary size, general knowledge, and basic arithmetic computation, show comparatively modest generational gains, in some analyses close to negligible, a striking contrast to the dramatic gains observed on abstract reasoning subtests, suggesting that whatever underlying factors are driving the overall Flynn effect are disproportionately affecting abstract, fluid reasoning ability specifically rather than uniformly boosting all forms of cognitive ability and acquired knowledge equally. James Flynn himself proposed an explanation for this uneven subtest pattern centered on broad cultural and educational shifts toward what he termed scientific or hypothetical reasoning. Modern life, education, and even everyday media increasingly require people to reason about abstract categories, hypothetical scenarios, and logical relationships independent of concrete, familiar, personally experienced reality, a mode of thinking that was considerably less common and less trained in earlier generations, whose thinking, Flynn argued, was more concretely and practically oriented toward immediate, familiar reality. Complementary biological explanations propose that improvements in early childhood nutrition, reduced infectious disease burden, and dramatically reduced environmental lead exposure specifically support the neural development of the frontal and parietal brain regions most heavily involved in abstract, fluid reasoning ability, potentially explaining why these specific abstract reasoning subtests show disproportionately large gains, while crystallized, knowledge-based subtests, less dependent on this specific pattern of neural development, would be expected to show smaller corresponding gains under this biological account. The dramatically uneven pattern of Flynn effect gains across specific subtests provides important theoretical insight into the nature of measured intelligence itself, suggesting that IQ test performance reflects a combination of a more stable underlying cognitive ability component and a genuinely trainable, culturally and educationally responsive component specifically related to abstract reasoning skill and test-taking familiarity, complicating any simple interpretation of IQ scores as measuring a single, entirely fixed, purely biological form of general intelligence untouched by cultural or educational context. The subtest-specific nature of Flynn effect gains has direct practical implications for psychological testing practice, requiring IQ tests to be periodically renormed with updated population samples to maintain accurate, meaningful score interpretation over time, since using outdated norms would systematically overestimate current test takers' relative standing, and cautioning strongly against naive, direct comparison of raw IQ scores obtained using tests normed in different historical eras, since such comparisons conflate genuine ability differences with time-dependent generational test performance shifts specific to particular cognitive subtests. The Flynn effect's uneven pattern across specific cognitive subtests reveals a more nuanced and theoretically interesting story than a simple, uniform rise in intelligence. Abstract reasoning ability specifically has surged across generations, likely reflecting genuine cultural and educational shifts toward abstract, hypothetical thinking, while more knowledge-dependent cognitive skills have remained comparatively stable, offering a valuable window into which components of measured intelligence are most responsive to environmental and cultural change.